Everybody's got a story about what went down in Utah. It would basically be impossible to tell all those stories, but these are some of the stories from the people that were there.
Well, it's fast, feels like you're flying for about a few seconds, and then you just mob through the landing, if you land. Otherwise, you just tomahawk and flip around. Yeah. Well, tomahawk down the landing, but I went off it.
You hit Chad's gap.
Jesus. 3, 2, 1.
Snowboarding here started a long time ago with Dmitry Malovich doing the winter stick, sticking back in the day.
The early days of hiking across the street from Alta over here on Flagstaff, Superior and stuff, there were so few of us that, you know, you wouldn't really see anybody. I just remember back in the day that you wouldn't want somebody to run over your line because there were so few people. You're painting your picture on the mountain and you'd get mad if your buddy like, no, don't go over my line, I want to see it.
The goal of getting a resort open, that was number one, just a place to go. You know, the growth of snowboarding was really resort acceptance once we got resorts open. Giving people a place to go do it was half the battle.
So when I first started riding those first seasons at like Park West, it was the Salty Peaks snowboard team was the shit. I was like, oh my God. I think they even had a snowboard team before they had a snowboard shop. And they all like rode around and there's like blue sweatshirts, crew neck sweatshirts, which are like Salty Peaks down the sleeves. And like you could always tell if someone was on the Salty Peaks team if they had that shirt. There was one dude and it was Jeff Davis. That guy was by far the cream of the crop.
We had a good crew of riders that when Salty Peaks came about, we had a lot of good times, you know, going to contests together, just raising mayhem like early young snowboarders did back then.
Jeff Davis was the first guy to have a pro model from Utah, and he honed a lot of his skills at Brighton and traveling around and stuff like that. He invented the crippler.
The crippler came about the natural half pipe at Park West. So everybody's got to learn the J-tear if you want to do good in a contest. And I start doing it, and I did one, I threw it really hard, and I forgot to put my hand down and kind of grab my board, and my buddy's like, dude, you're gonna get crippled if you do that. You know, I can't believe it. I've got so many text messages at the Olympics this year of the guys, you're named the crippler. You know, I feel very honored that they're still doing the trick, but now they're doing double cripplers, which I never would have thought of. But come on, you know, how cool is that to have, you know, a trick named after you that hopefully will live forever. I can't do them anymore, I'll get crippled. Andy Brewer would be definitely one of the guys that everyone looked up to in those early days. He was doing stuff on a winter stick with those old strap bindings that, I mean, you just couldn't believe.
Andy Brewer's, like, he's the original OG.
He was like a vert skater. He was from Ogden, and there's a vert ramp up there I'd always see him at. And so I didn't even know he snowboarded, but then like when I started snowboarding, I'd see him around and he ripped.
Yeah, he's like a true legend of Salt Lake City and snowboard. Just killed it on the snowboard and skateboarding. Just classic, the people's champion.
I mean, even from the early area of, you know, your guys like Jeff Davis and, you know, the Basiches, Tina Basich, Mike Basich, and like Andy Hetzel, and people just coming, you know, that lived here, and then their friends coming through town and film crews. The scene was really exploding at the time, in a sense that, you know, next to California, Salt Lake City was a mecca to go ride, but an underground mecca.
Riding for Kemper Snowboards. Kemper organized a photo shoot out in Utah at Snowbird, so the whole crew went out there. It was a 5-day photo shoot. That trip was so memorable for me because every single person on the team was not from Utah, and we rode powder every single day. And it would snow and then it'd clear up, and we just got powder, endless powder. We were all hooked, so the whole team actually vowed to move to Utah the next season, and we were talking about getting a team house, and but everybody ended up moving out there. So I moved out there for a season and ended up being there for all of the 90s.
The first time I think I rode in Utah was at Brighton. It was just 2-3 feet of powder, just hucking big cliffs to flat on Millicent lift. And that was my first experience, and it was just ridiculous how good it was.
Right when the first photos started coming out in the magazines, like, we were getting published all the time because these photos were so awesome, and so it drew a lot of people out there. So a lot of other people and a lot of other snowboarding teams started heading our way, and so it kind of became this whole scene.
I guess in a way that it was like freestyle snowboarding was just spawning at Brighton.
Get up to Brighton early 90s, and we start cruising around, and then we start seeing the crews and pros we started seeing and recognizing them as pros as we started paying attention to videos was like Jason Brown and Brandon Ruff.
Brandon Ruff was already like a legend back then, like to us, you know, because he was like this dude that was going like twice or 3 times bigger than anyone else was going, and he could somehow land, because back then, like, actually landing and stomping and riding away was still like something that a lot of people hadn't figured out, you know?
He was the misty dude, but he was the dude that was like, if you can get a glimpse of Brandon riding at Brighton when you were there, you were hyped. You know, it was like, that's what we talked about. I saw Brandon hit a cliff. I saw Brandon hit the whale tail.
And then Jason Brown was another one. He didn't even have to be doing anything. You could just tell that what he was doing was different than everybody else.
Just launching cat tracks into powder, living the snowboard dream.
This one's of Jason Brown. This is the first photo I ever got published in a mag. This is at Brighton, just in the woods between some runs. Frontside rock on a stump.
So those were the pros, you know, it was like we really looked up to these local dudes.
I mean, those guys were just kind of already setting the bar in snowboarding, not even really realizing it yet. So it was really cool to see them just progressing. Like we were interacting going, oh my gosh, Jason Brown was riding the contest with us yesterday, and the next day he's, you know, riding for Burton, and Jamie Lynn and Dave Cioni are chasing him around the mountain at Snowbird.
They call themselves maybe like the Farmington crew, the FC, and like this kid like JP Walker, he has like long blonde hair and rides a Noah Selaznick.
He was on his way to Whistler for the winter, and I totally intercepted him and invited him to come stay at my house. I said, I have an extra room. If you want to come through, you got to check out Utah. So he connected with me, and he flew into Utah, and like a week later he had bought a beat up Subaru and got his season pass, and he stayed. And he loved it. He loved the snowbird scene, and everybody loved riding with him. He was such an awesome guy, and I remember that when he started touring, the Beastie Boys were going to come through Salt Lake City and play. And his manager called me and said, hey, Adam wants to make sure all the bros get tickets to come to the show. And I'm like, well, do you want a list, or how should we do this? And he goes, well, why don't I just put your name plus however many you need? And he's like, how many tickets do you think you need? I'm like, put Tina plus 50. He's like, all right. So we all go to the concert down in Salt Lake, and we go to Will Call, and we're like, tickets for Tina Basich plus 50. And they're like, here you go. And I just sat there and handed them out, and we just rocked the house. It was so crazy. Seeing him live, just rocking with all of our 50 friends was just crazy. And he continued to be a part of the snowboarding scene there, and he will never be forgotten.